listening to On Writing, a podcast from the Writers Guild of America East. I'm your host, Jerry Cole. In each episode, you'll hear writers working in film, television, and news break down everything from the writing process to pitching, favorite jokes to key scenes, and so much more. Hello, I'm Jerry Cole, and welcome to a live taping of On Writers for Women's History Month. In these special episodes, we'll be talking with women writers telling women's stories. Today's episode is being presented by the WGAE Women's Salon, and our guest is none other than Jenny Lamette. Jenny is the co-creator and showrunner of Clarice, a new CBS series that follows FBI agent Clarice Sterling as she returns to the field a year after the events of Silence of the Lambs. The series returns FBI agent Sterling to the field to hunt down serial killers, murderers, and sexual predators, while also navigating Beltway politics at the Bureau in Washington, D.C., and dealing with her past traumas. Jenny is also the screenwriter for the acclaimed feature film Rachel Getting Married, which was directed by the late, great Jonathan Demme. Please welcome Jenny Lamette. Thank you for taking time to talk with us today.
You guys, thank you so much for having me. And you could hear any myriad of shit going on in my house. I have to tell you that right now. There's kids, there's dogs. Okay. So we're just gonna roll with that. If that's cool.
Okay. That is absolutely cool. So that actually answered my first question. How you doing? How you holding up? That sounds like you got
there's a lot of shit
going
on in my house. You know, the how you doing question, I think in 2020 or 2021 is always the asterisk.
Yeah.
So it's like if the baseline is,
yeah.
So I mean, I'm good. I'm busy.
Yeah.
You know. All is well.
I mean, it's like we're all living in this collective hell, but I'm okay.
Yes, we are. It's our own particular, it's our own personal little hellscape. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to jump right in and start talking about Clarice, your latest project, which I kept checking back today to make sure I was all up to date. I'm all up to date. Let's talk about the development of this concept, because I don't know that, or to me, it seemed like the first time I'd sort of seen a movie character taken out and then given its own series. It felt like a very exciting concept to me. What drew you to this story and this world and this character?
Well, actually, there are a couple of answers to that. And just even to address what you just said, I mean, Hannibal had his own series for a while. And I can't remember, I have a writing partner whose name is Alex Kurtzman, and I can't remember if it was his impetus or my impetus. Somebody kind of woke up and said, wait, where's Clarice Sterling? There seemed to be a lot of airtime devoted to these kind of sad old murderers and really fucked up guys who actually didn't win anything. And I keep thinking, well, where's the woman who beat everybody and won and then went back to school like a regular human being and and it seemed like it was really strange to us that it didn't exist, that it hadn't existed before this. I used to be a school teacher, and I always got a kind of Persephone vibe from Clarice. But that's a bit highfalutin, this is network TV. But that was one of the things that definitely attracted me to this. I always thought, what if Persephone had a gun? Like how it should be different, and a badge, how it should be different. It also seemed, you have this iconic character. I feel like on television, so many female detectives or so many female agents we see are daughters of Clarice. And it seemed to me, how can she be so present in the psychic space, but just completely absent? How is she this sort of hero and this mystery at the same time? And I thought, again, what kind of woman doesn't stop, in the sense that she went down several terrifying stairways. She went down into the darkest, meanest, most horrible places, mostly inhabited by men. I'm not going to not say that this isn't a thing, because it is a thing. Who is the woman who does that at the age of 25? And it occurred to me that the woman who does that has a lot of secrets. And I wanted to know what they were. There's a particular rights situation in which the rights to Clarice are separate from the rights to some of the other characters in the Thomas Harris universe. And I'm a big Thomas Harris fan. So there were these kind of very liberating strictures on whom we were allowed to put in her world and whom we weren't. And when we first started this whole thing, I reached out to Mr. Thomas Harris, and by reaching out, I stalked him. I email stalked him until he very graciously responded. Couldn't have been more lovely. I printed it and framed it and put it on my wall, because I wanted to ask some very specific things about Clarice Sterling's life. And this may sound super weird, but I voraciously devoured the books. I know the Harris world very, very well. And I kept thinking, when Clarice was at the FBI Academy, did she ever go home for the holidays for like Christmas dinner, or did she have every single solitary meal in the cafeteria? I was like, I feel like she had every single meal in the cafeteria. So what's that about? Mm-hmm. And I thought, what does she carry her shit in? Because she went from the sheep farm to an orphanage to University of Virginia to FBI Academy. So she has to live out of a duffel bag. So whose duffel bag is it and what's in there? These very small questions were really biting at me, and I wanted to know them. And it felt like she'd been quiet for 30 years. And certainly in not to say that activism wasn't extraordinary before 2016, but there seemed to be a new volume or a different volume. And it seemed like the right time for this woman who hadn't said boo to tell her own story. And I thought that was cool.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a long answer.
It is cool. Yeah, no, that is cool. Because it is, like, I'm thinking of, like, does she eat every meal alone in the cafeteria? It's like, yes, she does.
Well, those are the writer questions, It's like, what, does she cut her own hair? Mm-hmm. I imagine that she had this bathrobe, this really hideous pink bathrobe, and we wrote it in that she sort of slumps around. She lives with Ardelia, and in this and the pockets of the bathrobe are stuffed with like candy wrappers and tissues and stuff like that. And what wasn't in the book was everything that we wanted to talk about in the show.
So what is your process like normally? But I guess also especially in writing material like this, because it feels very heavy. And so, I don't know if that is like, do you need to do something especially sunshiny after, like getting through an episode? Or are you like a scary movie person and it's unfazed by, sort of dealing with these scary things?
I don't know. I think the world's pretty scary. So anything that I can make up really isn't nearly as scary as what's going around the fucking corner. But, and pardon my language, I was raised by wolves. So here's the thing, and this is a little bit funky, right? But it's true. So when I say we, I mean generations I'm the fourth generation in my family. My son, who's a working actor, is the fifth, to be in showbiz, which means that we've been doing this, and this is true, in one way or another since the Reconstruction, which is it's a long freaking time. My grandma's mom was in the tent shows in the Deep South, right? So you got about 100 years of everybody being freelance, essentially, in my family. And on my father's side as well, there is his father was an actor in Poland, and then when he got to America, was an actor in the Yiddish theater. And then before him, there's a big chunk because of that particular genocide that I can't track down. But I was able to track down a lot. And we've been doing this a long time, and what that sort of gives you is this really funny perspective, or this perspective of it's work, it's your job. You go and you do your job. It's the best job in the world, and I love being able to work. I love being able to work at the same job that everybody before me had. It's really, in one way or another, it's so great. And maybe it's that perspective, but I don't get stuck in a heavy place. I don't get stuck in a comedic place. This is just the work. Maybe I'm just lucky like that.
Well, I feel like you've kind of already answered one of my other questions, but I do also want to go back to your, like, do you do cards and outlines and stuff like that? Or how disciplined you keep yourself. But the other question that I feel like you already kind of answered was that you do come from this long line of amazing artists, and like how that informed your creative journey, which it sounds like it gave you this automatic perspective or this understanding that it's like, this is our work and it's legitimate and it takes all different kinds of skills that, this is the work that we do, which I feel like feels incredible to have like that understanding that like, this is valid. This is my work.
Yes. I mean, my muse probably like has a hangover somewhere. I can't, I don't, I don't have, there's really no time because of for waiting for her to show up. In terms of discipline, yeah. I mean, I'm a single parent, so you have to, these are the hours that I have in the day, and this is what I'm going to do with them. I try to get a nap in. I try to get half an hour, try to get a nap in every day. But it's not cards, God. I do a lot of sitting around and talking with smart people, with other writers. Some people chip away from the outside and get in. I usually come from the inside and go out, meaning I probably knew what was in Clarice's duffel bag more than I knew what was happening in episode 3. But that's the beauty of a room full of writers, is that there's someone whose extraordinary skill set is the arc of the season. I have that skill, but not to the extent that other people do. I go this way. And so I stay in that lane, and it works. And it works. But no, they're paying me. I got to show up. I mean, I can't, there aren't.
It's real easy to be disciplined when there's a.
Yeah. It makes it pretty easy.
Can you bring us inside the Clarice Writers Room a little bit? How you go from pitching to breaking story and it evolving into the series?
We started with a mini room, and this is when people still went to rooms. It was about 4 people, and it wasn't so much breaking down. We knew the material, or at least I knew the material so well. And a lot of people are big Harris people, and they know that material like the back of their hands. It was about how can we make, that's the first thing you expect in a show about Clarice Starling, let's not do that. And if you'd think, okay, Clarice is going to chase a serial killer. All right. So how do we make that different? And we found a way, which I think is more insidious than one scary guy, because it's the enemy, the danger is something that we surround ourselves in all the time, ourselves with all the time, and is always present in our lives. And I thought that was a really cool idea. It's almost less scary when you can see it. I'm not saying Buffalo Bill was a walk in the park, but Buffalo Bill was one guy in his house. We came up with a very specific story for our big bad. And we came up with a very, how did our big bad grow up? That kind of thing. And our big bad is Big Pharma, and it's a person within Big Pharma. So we did a huge amount of research about Big Pharma after World War II. And once we knew how Big Pharma worked, it was not easy enough. Easy in the sense that if you apply enough mental, if you beat the shit out of it enough, you'll get it. So time, yes, enormous amounts of time, but not complicated. We just kept beating it up and beating it up and beating it up until we understood the history of our big bad and how that would echo within the character of Clarice Starling. And we also knew Clarice's personal issues in her childhood, or we had made them up because he doesn't address them much in the book. And we wanted those two things to dovetail so everything would be motivated by character and everything would echo in character. Once we had that, then we do what all writers' rooms do, which is fucking panic, and somebody writes the first draft, and then everybody has snacks and screams and yells and who's got gum, and it was that. And wrote the pilot pretty quickly. Wrote the pilot pretty quickly, which doesn't mean to say we didn't think about it for, weeks before. We did. The writing of itself wasn't that long. We had a couple of images that echoed for us, and we listened to them and paid attention to them. And that's kind of what happened. And then I think the day before the cast table read in Toronto, everybody got shut down for COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Everybody got shut down for COVID. So we stopped everything. I can't remember how many months it was. The cast stayed in touch over Zoom, made each other playlists. I'm not saying yay COVID by any means, but it did allow time for writing and it allowed time for thinking. But when we came back, it was still an insane psychotic panic of craziness. Because that's the job. That's the job.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's the job.
Yeah, that's the job.
Why Big Pharma? How'd you guys get to Big Pharma?
Because they suck.
They do suck,
They
actually.
suck. And they hate women, and they hate poor people, and they hate people of color, and fuck them.
Yeah. They hate everyone.
They hate most of us, yes. And I was thinking about, you think about the Sacklers and what they did with impunity. And you're just kind of like, really? Fuck you.
Yeah. Also, shouldn't there be laws against this?
Shouldn't there be?
I say that question every day, I feel like. I'm like, shouldn't there be laws against this? I thought there were laws against this. Apparently not. I also, one of the things that I really loved about the show is that I feel like you deal with race in a very grounded and integrated way. There was one particular episode that stood out to me where there was a conversation between Clarice and Ardelia about the sort of difference in their experiences. Was that a part of your plan initially, or was it just sort of a natural thing? Yeah.
Totally. I mean, look, I'm a Black woman, and the Black best friend thing makes me want to kill myself and everybody around me, or kill everybody around me and then myself. I get so angry. And the anger of the experience fed into that. And we knew Elizabeth Clevitter, who's our showrunner, who's extraordinary, she was 100% down. Mm-hmm. The friendships between women are so ripe and so important. We wanted to investigate that as much as we wanted to investigate anybody who ended up dead on Clarice, and an interracial friendship with our star, Clarice Starling, coming to terms with not knowing what she doesn't know what she doesn't know. Mm-hmm. And this is she loves Ardelia most in the world, and Ardelia loves Clarice. And it's a different path for people of color, no matter what. And I'm not someone who makes let's make this the very special February episode. Like, that doesn't fucking work. This is Ardelia's journey. Is she's going to sue the entire Bureau for being assholes. And she does. Mm-hmm. And it's going to suck because she's going to get payback for it. But that's her story. And Clarice she can love her friend, but she can't really help. And that's cool. Ardelia and Clarice Ardelia, I think, graduated second in her class. She's a genius. And to address what it means, to address what it feels like, I've heard a lot about what it means and a lot of intellectual discussions about, it means this. It's like, yeah, but you got to know what it feels like. You got to know what it feels like. And it feels like shit. And our actress, Devin, she's a pretty extraordinary human. And when we said this is what we're doing from the beginning, she just kind of blinked. And then she was like, "Whoa," because this is what we want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this material provided a vehicle for a lot of discussions, which is cool.
There's also this, speaking of interesting discussions, I feel like this very special dynamic between Clarice and Catherine, where they sort of share this traumatic experience, and Clarice sort of not wanting to view herself as a victim, but clearly suffering PTSD. And sort of that dynamic, which I feel like we don't get to see often. And I'm curious to see how that continues through the arc of the series. But I thought it was another very interesting point. It was like, oh, we're going to see this conversation or this relationship between these two women who have this very shared traumatic experience.
That came, it's funny. This was one of the reasons I wanted to do this show. And I used to be quite apologetic about having anger about the wreckage that people leave behind in the wreckage. Sorry, guys, that men leave behind. And now I don't want to apologize about being angry about the wreckage. One of the things that attracted me to this material was the relationship between Catherine and Clarice. And it came out of a letter I wrote to The Hollywood Reporter in 2017. It was a Me Too letter. And it's out and about. It was about Russell Simmons. Mm-hmm. And a woman reached out to me, and I resisted her, and I resisted her, and I resisted her. A woman who'd been in the same situation, and I resisted her. And then finally I said, okay, let's meet. And we met. And the connection was very, very instantaneous, and it was quite electric, like lightning hitting the ground. It was like, like that. Now, we don't see each other all the time. We can't, because it's pretty intense, and you want to, but if I need to know that she's in the world, I'll send her this little code that we have on our phones, and and if she needs to know that I'm in the world, she sends me her little code. And I thought, well, we're twins in a certain way. We're sisters in a certain way. Same physical space, same destiny mapped out for us, same time, same man. So it's a very singular relationship. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, holy shit, Clarice and Catherine have that too. Mm-hmm. And I'm a political person in the sense that you never want to sit next to me at dinner, right? So I'm like, another thing, and fuck you. But I don't want to write
absolutely wasn't next to you at dinner.
I don't want to write a show that's about eating that feels like you're eating your vegetables, you know? Mm-hmm. But I thought that kind of shared trauma is not an albatross or a weight. It's a superpower for the people who are left to carry it. And I decided it was a superpower after I wrote that letter. And it became a superpower because after I wrote that letter, I'm now in charge of all these shows, none of which are about that particular topic. But it was important to me that those who have been in a situation, the language, I hope words still mean things. But if you have been in a situation where you've been victimized, I hope you understand that any human understands that it'll leave you with a scar, but it also leaves you with a superpower. And I wanted people to maybe get that or feel that, not get it. I'm not a teacher. Feel it. Because as Clarice and Catherine have a superpower, and myself, and this woman, we have a superpower too. And I think that's a really cool relationship. You know? I'm interested. I think like all women of color could be like, hey, you, me too, great. Yeah. This is our what trauma? What trauma was today? Great. Yeah. That's great. That's our superpower.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. That it's a superpower and not
a weight. Yeah. No, it's not a shackle. I thought it was a shackle for so long. And it's not. It's a superpower.
So do you have any particular lines or scenes or moments that you feel like have translated particularly well to screen? Like something that you weren't sure was going to work and or that you were really excited to pull out of, and incorporate into the show that once it got to screen, you were super excited about? I actually have a line that I love.
No, lay it on me.
That Clarice was talking... who was she talking to? One of the men in her unit. And she said, don't tell me to slow down. You catch up. Yeah. And I was like, so I felt that one.
Yeah. If I had a nickel for everyone who said relax, I'm like, you fucking relax. I'm running 5 television shows. You go whatever. Go play whatever it is you do. Boy. Excuse me. Somebody had the studio, both MGM and CBS asked, do we want to bring it into 2021? And our immediate response was no, because in 93, there was no HR. And a lot of the language that you and I are using on this right this minute simply wasn't in the ether. And the FBI was, I believe, and I did my homework, so I know, 90% white and male, and the 10% that was non-white and female was mostly administrative or janitorial. So we wanted to stack her with as many obstacles as we could. So no one in there is woke. Or even pretending to be woke, faux woke. No one is sprinting for the freaking woke Olympics in 1993 like everybody is now. And we knew that would make it hard for her. And we also didn't want her to have tech. We didn't want her to be able to Google anything. We wanted her to have to use a cell phone, oh my God, a payphone, and walk places and look shit up with the microfiche or whatever I used to do. But the lack of everything she knows within her corresponds almost exactly to a lack of resources on the outside of her. And that frustration is a really interesting place to write from.
So as previously mentioned, you are running several shows. Clarice, The Man Who Fell to Earth, Picard.
I'm not running Picard.
But you're co-EP, yes?
Co-EP on Picard, yeah.
And a co-EP on Star Trek.
EP on Star Trek Discovery, co-creator on Strange New Worlds. But I will never in a million years. I mean, the showrunner on Disco is Michelle Paradise, who's I would not diss anybody who has that title in these shows. I work on the shows when they need me. We all cast an eye, and the Trek family is extraordinary, and I'm so lucky to be a part of it. And if you're in it, and you just kind of always end up helping out. I wrote an entire, probably a couple of seasons of Trek, one way or another. And just since Clarice, there hasn't been the time.
Do you feel like there's any like rules that you need to abide by to sort of be in so many different places or, you know, be available to so many different projects at once, or that helps you be available to so many different projects at once?
Yes. I'm from New York City, and I've lived here in Santa Monica for 2 years, and it's weird. It's like living in Nancy Meyer's kitchen. You know, like everything's perfect and everyone has those jars full of lemons.
Okay.
And you're just like, what the fuck?
And you're like, this is nice.
This is really pretty. And So I just think of it like trains. And sometimes I'm on the 6 train, sometimes I'm on the 5 train, sometimes I'm on the 7, sometimes I'm on the Yell, whatever. But you just get off a train and you get on the next one, and that's what you do. It's a muscle like any other muscle. You know, you exercise how to switch tracks. And again, not everybody has every skill. There's a lot of stuff I can't do. But this I happen to be able to do. It probably comes from being a parent, you know, where you're like, give me your gum, go take a bath. And it's just, that's what it is.
Nice. Also, you have worked with Alex Kurtzman on several projects. What do you look for in potential collaborators? And what do you think helps make successful partnerships?
Alex is the only person I've really collaborated with, but we have completely dovetailing skill sets. He is I've never known anybody with a brain for television structure like Alex. Never. And he would say to me, sometimes say of each other, I'm the ingredients and he's the recipe. If that makes any sense. Sometimes we switch, but that's pretty much the relationship. And we lucked out in that we found it like that. We shore each other up where the weak spots are. He's also a dear, dear, dear friend and a very funny nerd guy who's like a Trek nerd. And I'm like, nerd! So I look, if I'm ever collaborate again, I may or may not, I don't know, but I would look for a partner who dovetails skill sets with mine. So we're both, if you have 2 people who are brilliant at character, you're going to have the funniest scene imaginable, but nothing's going to happen on page 12. You know? It's like, wait, why am I still here?
Yeah.
So in a collaborator, a similar sense of humor, but dovetailing skill sets, if I should be so lucky.
So also, as previously mentioned, you worked with Jonathan Demme on your feature film, Rachel Getting Married, which was incredible. What was your working relationship like? And I heard that you fought to have him as the director?
No, well, there's no fighting to have Jonathan Demme in the sense that, and also I didn't have any juice. I mean, this was my first produced screenplay. I stalked him to have him as a director.
See, stalking's in your repertoire.
Yeah, you got to get your sociopath on, man, for real. This shit's crazy. I stalked Jonathan Demme to get him to direct this. And there's not, you know, he's a fearless American artist. And it breaks my heart that he is not here to document, at the very least, the last 4 years. Although it would have broken his heart to see the last 4 years, but he would have understood a perspective that the country needed. He's one of the greatest documentarians we have. He's still very alive for me. A gentle, lovely, funny, like how lucky can you be to have Jonathan Demme direct your movie? And he directed my movie, and I just kind of sat there and just did exactly what he fucking told me. Because he knows what he's talking about. So, okay, I'll do that. Great. Yeah. Puppets? Great. The whole thing's puppets, fine. Like, yeah. Pretty much whatever he said.
Wow.
I'm grateful.
As also mentioned, you have these other projects in the work. Also one about your legendary grandmother.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure, a very personal project. And I think that plus Clarice, plus the Star Trek, it seems like they're all very different.
No.
But do you find that there's a common thread?
Yeah.
And I actually think, I also think that there's a common thread, but I'm...
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, there's a black chick in the center of all of them. And Man Who Fell to Earth. Man Who Fell to Earth is about a black family. And, you know, it's Chiwetel. But, yeah, there's a black chick in the center of everything. But, no, they're all about the same thing. I mean, Trek is very much a family story. Trek is 100% about family. Clarice is about family and loss. Rachel Getting Married is about family and loss. Obviously, anything I write about my grandma is about family and loss. And Man Who Fell to Earth is certainly about family and loss. So it's all the same. It's all the same. I wanted and set about, after I wrote Rachel, I knew that I needed to learn how to do a lot of things. So I was like, okay, I wrote that movie. I'm not going to say I know how to write all movies, but I wrote that movie. I would like to know how to write for television. I would like to know how to write a big blockbuster. I would like to know how to write a short. I would like to know how to write like a 10-minute when Quibi existed. I would like to know how to write a network show. I would like to know how to write a premium cable show. And so I learned how to do all those things over 10 years. And they're all different. They're different vehicles. But the more things that you know how to do, the more things you can do. So sure, yeah. Are they different? One's a cop show. Man Who Fell to Earth is certainly about space. Trek is 100% about family, 100% about family. And Grandma's about family and celebrity and a lot of other things. I guess they seem different, but I don't know. I mean, what can't a human being connect to in one way or the other? What would be so far out of anybody's imagining that they couldn't find it within themselves? Sure, is somebody a great writer for something? Yes. Is somebody a less great writer for the same project? Yes. But I don't know. I mean, I assume that anybody who is watching this, if there's anybody, if there's anybody there, the imagination is pretty limitless. And any blocks that you put up, I'm saying, I don't want to go to outer space. And I love being in outer space with Trek and with Man Who Fell to Earth, because I thought I couldn't, but I was wrong.
My answer to that question that I thought was like, oh, actually, that feels like the through line to me is character, is that they're all very big characters and, like compelling characters. The other thing that you actually just touched on that I want to go back to is that you did take a bit of a break after Rachel getting married. And what was your process like trying to learn all these different styles of writing?
I did have a baby. So there was the whole having the baby part of it. It was trial and error. I mean, I was taking meetings and writing script. Nothing got produced, but I was taking meetings and writing drafts for people and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't want to feel, people say, how do you avoid imposter syndrome? And after writing Rachel, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome, even though everybody said, oh, this is a great movie or a very good movie or whatever. I still felt like I got a lucky, I still felt like I got up to bat, hit one out of the park, but had no fucking idea how to play baseball. So I knew that the only way to learn how to play baseball was to play baseball. So I just kept writing and writing and writing and working. And I didn't think about, I'm going to go, I don't know. I didn't think about the next big thing. I just thought, just keep going. Just don't stop. Keep your foot on the accelerator. And that seemed to work for me.
That actually, I feel like, brings me to a question that I try to ask everyone, because it's a question that I love to hear everyone's perspective on, which is the idea of success. I feel like success always looks different than you think it's going to look. And so I'm curious as to what your idea of success looks like now and how it's evolved over the years.
Again, it's a different idea because, this is fourth generation. So the glamour part, there's some glamorous shit in there. Like you put on your false eyelashes for a Zoom. I didn't put them on because I couldn't find them. I don't remember where they are. I think that right now I am successful because you can ask me any question about any of my shows and I'm very confident in my answer. Whether it's the right answer or the wrong answer, that's not the point. The point is, do I know my shit? Yes, I know my shit now. That's successful to me. They pay you, it's great. All of the other stuff is great. It's wonderful. But I couldn't bear the anxiety of feeling like it wasn't of the imposter-y kind of stuff after Rachel. It's horrible. It's horrible. And now that doesn't occur to me. And that's, if I had my druthers, if I had my dream would be to infuse the cinematic world with creators of color who feel this way, which is that you have to deal with me and I know my shit. That would be kind of my dream.
That feels, as someone who also suffers from imposter syndrome, that does sound like success to me.
Yeah, right? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't no idea if I would get here. And I was like, oh, okay.
Feels good. We only have a little bit of time left, and I want to make sure to get to some questions from the audience. And so, okay. What did Jenny learn about the craft from her father? I was struck by her routine 30-minute nap.
Mm-hmm.
I also like, we can work naps into it. I got to work on a Sidney Lumet production and remember he believed in a short daily nap.
Yep.
For Jenny, is it a mental refresh? Does she use that time to think about story in a relaxed state, if that makes sense?
No, I get completely fucking unconscious. For out, boom. And my dad, on lunch, he would take lunch from 12 to 12:55. And in the beginning of lunch, he would have cantaloupe and 2 Oreos. And then he would fall asleep for 45 minutes and wake up and be able to do the rest of the day. Naps are key. Besides naps, again, my dad said to me, and he had his poetic moments, this wasn't one of them, but the lesson was well learned. He goes, I don't care if what you're doing is shit on the wall. Just keep going.
Wow.
I think I'm here at this age because I simply didn't stop. So there's a lot to be said for not stopping.
That also is good to hear. Because that's been my theory, where it's like, if I just keep at it, like at some point.
Yeah.
Let's see. Please talk about the dishwasher scene. How did you combine the real life aspect of it with how it fit into the story?
The dishwasher scene really happened. It was in East Hampton, Long Island. And we just had dinner, and Bob Fosse and my dad, Bob Fosse was over, and Bob Fosse and my dad, because they're insane and because who the fuck knows why, but they really had this thing about who could load more shit in the dishwasher. And, and Bob Fosse was wearing these black cashmere pants and I remember this so well, and a black cashmere polo, and had this black cashmere thing over his shoulders, and he was smoking, and the smoke, it looked like Bob Fosse's smoke. It was like exquisite. And my dad, God love him, he looks like a melon. He's like very round and very little. And he had this sweatsuit with vinaigrette on it from when you drop it on your belly. And my dad's loading the salad bowls in the dishwasher. I'm like 10 years old. And Bob Fosse goes, Sydney, if you invert the salad bowls, you could probably get 10% more space in the upper rack. And my dad goes, go fuck yourself, Bob. And then the two of them unloaded and loaded the dishwasher for probably 2 or 3 hours after that, because they're the most competitive people on the planet after me. And then and it was really great. And they were free. The family was free of their family wound of the death of the child for a little while, and then they were pulled back into it by the dish. So you're never free. It's about how you're going to carry it. And the father had just been so facile and juggled and quite literally was spinning plates. And then one thing brought him crashing down. And as much as he wanted to be free, he couldn't. And I thought that was important in that moment.
So speaking of your father, you've been a producer, a writer, an actor, but I heard or read somewhere that you don't want to direct.
Fuck no. Oh my God, it's the worst job. Oh my God. Like, people ask you a question every second. Nobody leaves you alone, except in that 55 minutes when maybe you're allowed to take a nap. But I don't think you're allowed to take naps anymore. Oh my God. No, I can't imagine being in the mix and listening to sound cues, and oh my God, that made me insane. No.
Not doing it.
No, if you're a writer, you get to go home. You get to stop. No.
So do you feel like writer then is, out of producer and actor, of the other roles that you've played, writer feels the most at home for you?
Writer, producer, certainly. I was a very bad actor, which is good to, it's good to find out. It's good to find out the shit you're bad at, so you don't keep doing it. Bad actor. I'm a good producer in the sense that I can tell when something's dishonest. There are other producers who are much more experienced than I, but I can tell when something's dishonest, and that's a valuable skill. Writing and producing is fun, and I also believe in it. There are many, many people who would like to direct stuff. God bless them. Ain't me.
Well, I think actually that's all of the questions that we have. And that we're out of time. Jenny, thank you so much. It was so lovely.
Thank you so much. Lisa, talk to you. I miss you.
That's it for this episode. On Writing is a production of the Writers Guild of America East. Tech production and original music is by Stockboy Creative. You can learn more about the Writers Guild of America East online at wgaeast.org, and you can follow the Guild on social media at WGA East. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and rate us. I'm Jerry Cole. Thank you for listening, and write on.